That is a part-built Rimac Nevera. This is a part-built Bugatti Tourbillon. This might be the world's most advanced car factory, and who better for a tour guide than mate Rimac himself? Thank you very much for having us. Absolutely. Let's get stuck in. This brand new multi-billion euro spaceship is the Rimac campus, just southwest of Zagreb in Croatia. It builds Rimac's own Nevera electric hypercars and houses the production line for prototype Bugatti Tourbillons. And with Porsche already using Rimac cells in the 911 GTST hybrid, it's about to become the go-to battery birthplace for the world's household name car makers. So come along on a tour with Mate, a man who, despite being boss of Rimac and Bugatti, isn't afraid to lend a hand. Get this, because my dad will love this. Can't even dress yourself, still. 33 years old, and you can't dress. And still likes an immature joke. The bloody size of this place. It's enormous. That's what she said. We'll show you a naked Bugatti Tourbillon, a naked Rimac Nevera R, rooms filled with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of V16s, hundreds of millions of dollars of robots, mind-blowing tech, and have an exclusive poke around Mate's personal car collection. Let's start with a car you might not have been expecting to see here, the Bugatti Tourbillon. Mate is the Bugatti Big Cheese, and while production tourbillons will be built at the Molsheim Atelier in France, in keeping with Bugatti tradition, the prototypes are created in Croatia because the hybrid tech is coming from Rimac. And that needs to be taught how to speak English so it gets along with the British Cosworth engine. So tourbillon engine. When I've been to Molsheim and seen the old Chiron engine, it is enormous. It, fills the room. This looks so much more compact. You must be really proud of that. Well, yeah. The Chiron engine was 450 kilograms. This one is 250 kilograms. So 200 kilograms less, just on the engine. Plus, there is no intercoolers, there's less heat generation and stuff like that. But, of course, you have the hybrid system, which adds up weight. But in the end, I don't know of any other car that's lighter as the hybrid successor than the combustion engine-only predecessor. So this car is somewhat lighter than the Chiron. And this is really something I'm really proud of. Very emotional, V16, naturally aspirated, 1,000 horsepower, a high-revving 9,500 revolutions per minute, 8-speed double-clutch gearbox, and the electric motor in the back. And as you can see, it's a tiny electric motor so this can provide, it depends on the battery, but the motor itself can provide like 500 horsepower, almost 400 kilowatts. And you can see the difference in size between the big combustion engine and the electric motor. And then, of course, 2 electric motors in the front and the battery pack in the middle. The difference between the Chiron and this is, the Chiron used to have the gearbox in front of the engine. We now have the gearbox behind, so that we can have the battery in the tunnel. And then there is the monocoque with the 2 fuel tanks. The cabin, which is same dimensions like the Chiron for the passengers, but very different architecture. So it's a lot lower and the passengers are closer. You can see that huge armrest kind of bulkhead you used to have is so much. It's narrower. Yeah, exactly. So that we have a smaller frontal area. So for example, I'll just give you one example. For me, it was very important to have a visible engine and open as much as possible. Not like partially covered, no glass on top, and so on. And the engineers, they are the nemesis. They really wanted to have a closed engine bay in order to improve the aerodynamics, to decrease resistance. But when we were comparing the Chiron aerodynamics with the Tourbillon aerodynamics, they were always looking at the drag. But the drag is just part of the story if you don't look at the frontal area. So by reducing the frontal area, we have a lower total drag, CV times CD. And, therefore, we could have some nice design elements, which are maybe a little bit worse in aerodynamics. But of course, the car is not driving 400 plus kilometers per hour that often. So you want to optimize also for when the car has to be somewhere at low speeds and look beautiful. Other tourbillon highlights include arrow-shaped suspension that's 45% lighter than the Chiron's, as it's 3D, printed by Divergent Offshoot Chinger in the USA. There are also Brembo's next-gen brakes, and the active rear wing is now electric, not hydraulically powered. But Mate is particularly proud of one item you will hopefully never need in your multi-million quid hypercar, the Formula One derived crumple zone. Right. So you wanted to come and look at this car. What was the secret you wanted to show us here? So beautiful view on the V16, the high-performance inverter for the electric motor in the back, and then the big exhaust system. But what you can't see now, when you have the rear clamshell on, is that the rear is very open. So usually, you would have a big crash structure here, like in the Nevera or Chiron or basically any other car. You would have a big metal beam, aluminum or steel, here. And you don't have that here. It's not because it's not mounted. It doesn't exist. Because this 3D printed aluminum crash cone is the crash structure, but it's also part of the diffuser. So you have a very tall diffuser here. So you can go very high up with the diffuser, which means you can have it very long until the middle of the car. Because a diffuser can't have any kind of angle. It has to be. Like, 11 degrees is kind of maximum angle for the diffuser, otherwise the air starts to separate. So if you have a tall diffuser in the back, that means you have to have this 11 degrees slope and it has to go all the way to the front. And as you notice, the engine is a lot more narrow than the W16. So we could have these diffuser channels left and right of the engine, plus we angled the engine. And this also means that the suspension is in the airflow. So you can see that the lower suspension arm is shaped like a wing because it's directly in the airflow. And this is only possible because this is also 3D printed. So we have lots of these little microstructures like you have here also in the suspension arm to give it the stiffness while having this aerodynamic profile. So there's sort of strengthening spars inside here. Yeah, like little structures, just like this one. And you can see with the cone, like this is like thin here and it goes wider. So it absorbs more crash energy as the crash progresses, so that when it reaches the really stiff parts of the car that already a lot of the energy is dispersed. And this, for example, if we are doing with Aston Martin's Formula One team, this 3D printed part and the 3D printed suspension. So lots of new stuff. Ollie, and if all that sounds very cutting edge, then there's also nods to old hypercar legends in here, like the McLaren F1. Again, another new question, the gold here. Are we talking about gold foil in the engine bay? Absolutely. And it's not just for the looks, it's because we actually need it. There's lots of heat happening right here in a very cramped space. There's lots of components in here, and gold is the best heat reflector. How many pounds worth of gold do you reckon you'll need per trillion? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. We are still looking at that, because as you see, there's some aluminum stuff in there, and I'm trying to change all of that to gold. But the designers are not too happy about. Add more gold to the engine bay. Good. Keep it up. That's what we like. Yeah, it is a stunning engine bay, and it's great that it's been able to be kept open air. And everything's real. It looks like some sort of sea monster, I think. Yeah, this manifold here. And nothing is fake. Nothing is here just to look like an engine, and just to look like a cover. This is actually the engine intake, you know. That's the real engine you see here. Ollie, every time I thought Mate was about to run out of insane details to drool over, he came up with yet another innovation he wanted to show off. And it's not just stuff to do with the powertrain or the chassis. Even his new Bugatti's audio system is mind-blowing. Also, one other thing. We don't have any speakers in the car. We use piezo elements that are vibrating the structure of the car, and the structure of the car becomes a speaker. So I'm not sure if we have one already put in here. Oh yeah? Here, this is the base. So that's it. And we saved a lot of weight and space with that. So that's effectively your subwoofer? Yes. But it's tiny. But that's not like. So this would be like the magnet in your speaker, but this is the membrane of the speaker. The whole thing. You're using the carbon tub, to make your sound cool. The door panels. And believe me, the sound quality of that car is in a different universe compared to the Chiron. So we saved weight, space, and improved the sound. So very substantial for such a car. And what's interesting, it's completely different compared to the Nevera battery. Here, we have submerged battery cooling. So this is how the module looks like inside. Similar battery cell. So the 21,700 factor, so the smaller battery cells. With oil running directly over the cells, so you have a direct cooling. When you are cooling the cells directly, because obviously they are electrically active, so you can't use water directly connecting to the cell. So when you directly cool the cell, you have to use a liquid that's thermally conductive but electrically non-conductive, which in this case is oil, which makes this very difficult to seal. So you have everything pressurized under oil. So that means there is a cover that comes on top that's laser welded, but not just around. Also, these pillars are connecting the top and bottom lid of the battery module, because otherwise it would fall apart of the pressure. So these pillars are distributing the stress on one side and the other to keep the module together. 6 of these modules. So the interesting thing about the Tourbillon is we have a very traditional combustion engine. Naturally aspirated, high revving, but a very high-tech electric powertrain. So that the electric powertrain, let's say, gives the performance that you lose by removing turbos. But I didn't want to have turbos in the car, so this is replacing the turbos in a way. Yeah, I know your thoughts on turbo hybrids is a case of, why would you have 2 compromises? Exactly. So you have the most high-revving crazy engine possible, and then you fill in and you. Exactly. Ollie, I guess the good news for non-hypercar collectors, like you and me, is that what Rimac learns in the high-end stuff, they trickle down into tomorrow's regular EVs and hybrids. So this is the cool stuff we do for, like, Bugatti, for Nevera. Here's a Valkyrie battery. That's also something I can show. As you do. But this is the high-volume stuff that we do for BMW and other car companies. So we produce those now in hundreds of thousands of units. So in a simplistic way, is this the stuff that sort of pays the bills to do the stuff that you're more passionate about it? That was the case in the beginning. Well, I started the company to just make cars. I just wanted to make my own car. But then I couldn't find investors, so I was like, okay, how do I pay the bills? And it was like, let's start to do anything that pays the bills. And that was, by coincidence, we started to work for other car companies, and that kept the lights on, but like just barely surviving in the early days. And then, when the Bugatti deal was happening 4 years ago, we split the company in 2. So we have the hypercar business, which is Bugatti-Rimac, and we have the tech business, which is Rimac Technology. And both companies have to be successful on their own. So Bugatti-Rimac making hypercars has to be successful and profitable, and the tech business has to be successful and profitable. And if you look at it, so the tech business now, we have 5 billion euros of ordered business from the big car companies. So that sounds successful. Yeah, well, the margins are not that great by selling batteries to other car companies, but I'm happy. Like, if you asked me 5 years ago if I would be happy with that, I would be very happy. So you'll see our batteries in many cars. Well, I'm sure some of the people who follow more closely, they know where our batteries are. But I can't say. The car companies have to say it themselves. I think we might know a few. Yeah, a few. Actually, I would say most of the, high-performance cars have our batteries. Or like premium cars. Then on the other side, the Bugatti-Rimac business. Bugatti is completely sold out, basically until the end of the decade. We have every car sold. No matter how much money you have, if you come to us and want a Tourbillon now, there is none. Well, this is devastating. I was going to get my order in any day now. Wow, just all Tourbillons gone. Yeah. Well, congratulations. Already a year ago. Basically, when we presented it. Just a year ago, we presented the car. At that time, it was already all gone. So, both companies have the fundamentals. And if you have, the executives from car companies, just yesterday there was one here. They're coming here and, every one of them says same thing. In the auto industry, it's doomsday, Everyone's depressed and, letting people go and reducing factories. In our case, it's the other way around. We are, enthusiastic, we are growing, we are hiring, we are building new factories. So despite the industry not being in best shape, I think both the companies in our case are doing very well.